I just realized that there was so much more than just the doing in life. There's so much more than just trying to strive and achieve these goals by brute force and effort. I realized that, wait, I can actually work with the universe and it's not all on me. I did by this other force outside of me, and it changed my life. And I'm gonna ask the universe if I am meant to do this thing that I was wanting, if this is gonna happen, if I'm following the right path by trusting this book and trusting this guidance, and I've never done this before, I am gonna see a dime. When he's gonna become the man that you want him to be is when you stop rejecting yourself. When you shift and change, he or your partner or whoever it is will shift and change too.
So Hannah, how old are you?
I just turned 27.
No way. What got you inspired on the path that you're on today?
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you so much for having me on, because it is such a pleasure and such a joy to be having this conversation with you. And honestly, if you had told me maybe 10 years ago that this is the work that I'd be doing right now, I probably wouldn't have believed you, because I was on a very different path growing up. So I live in San Francisco, California. I am first generation. My parents are from India. Being the eldest daughter on all sides of my family in all ways, there was a lot of pressure put on me to perform, to succeed, and especially being first generation as well. And I'd been a writer from the time I was very, very young. I've loved to read. I've loved to write. When I was 17 years old, that's when I had my quote unquote spiritual awakening. I just realized that there was so much more than just the doing in life. I realized that, wait, I can actually work with the universe and it's not all on me. And I'm actually guided by this other force outside of me. And it changed my life. And for about 6 or 9 months, I was really hesitant to bring it to my blog audience. I was scared that it was going to turn them away, because nobody my age was talking about spirituality in the way that people are now. It's such a beautiful thing to see how Gen Z is really embracing spirituality and spiritual concepts, and now it's more mainstream to talk about. It wasn't that way about 10 years ago. But eventually it got to the point where I could no longer hide that I was going through this spiritual journey. So I started sharing what I was learning from the perspective of a student, just saying, hey, I'm reading these books, I'm learning these things, it's changing my life. My blog audience ate it up, like more so than anything else. And they were like, please teach us about this. And I was like, teach? I was still learning. But I ended up going to UC Berkeley for college. And throughout college, I got my meditation teacher certification, my breathwork teacher certification. I became a trauma-informed coach. And I started developing all these tools to then help people. And so now I found myself in this place of being a speaker and being a coach and really leaning into this calling and path as a women's spiritual empowerment coach with a focus on, I tend to focus a lot on relationships.
When you talk about the spiritual awakening that you had, can you dive deeper into that?
I truly look back on it and see it as this intuitively guided moment that I didn't realize what it was. But I felt myself guided to my bookshelf. And in the bottom corner of my bookshelf, on there, I had a copy of the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. Have you read it before?
Of course.
It's a classic. It's a classic.
Yeah.
And my mom had gifted me the book when I was a teenager because she'd seen it on the Oprah show. And she was like, I think this will make you feel better. And I remember trying to read it at like 12, 13 and thinking like, this sounds great, but I don't really know how this works. And so I started to live by the book. I started to practice what the book was teaching me. I started to implement all the little lessons in there. And that was when my mind just completely opened to the fact that, oh my God, there is so much more than just what I'm witnessing in front of me.
Do you remember anything that happened which validated what was written in the book?
Absolutely. So one of the pages that I first read, because I just flipped open the book and just immediately started reading a random section, was talking about asking the universe for a sign. And it gave the example of asking for like a penny, a coin. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to play a little game with myself. And I'm going to ask the universe if I'm following the right path by trusting this book and trusting this guidance, and I've never done this before, I am going to see a dime, another coin, next time I leave the house. And I remember later that day, I completely forgot about that moment. And I had gone out to go shopping with my mom, and we walked back to the car. And as soon as I was about to open the passenger door of the car, I looked down, and sure enough, there was a dime right in front of my feet. And I was like, wait a second. Well, how did that even happen? Soon after that, I started finding dimes everywhere. I was walking into the classroom, and this guy was walking in front of me, going into the same classroom. And he had opened the door. I was following him. He turned around and he goes, I don't know why, but I think this is for you, and hands me a handful of dimes. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm going crazy.
How did you get into talking about relationships?
Hi there. My mission with this podcast is to create a space filled with love, peace, and hope, especially for those of you who are tired of viral and extreme content that floods our feed. To make this vision a reality, I'm bringing together a team of professionals who's going to help spread this message of hope far and wide. But I can't do this alone. I need your help. And here are 4 ways you could help with this movement. Number 1, turn on those bell notifications. Be the first to comment and engage, because that initial engagement and likes help the YouTube algorithm share a message with more viewers. Number 2, send this message to your family and friends who you think would resonate with our uplifting messages. Number 3, consider making a donation. Number 4, subscribe to the channel. As a working single mother who's on a mission to spread this movement, I truly appreciate your support. Together, let's be the catalyst to bring heaven on earth. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Now let's get back into the podcast.
Honestly, it's a very new shift, and it's something that I was really afraid to go into. I always let them lead in a sense of, if they are asking for something, I'm going to show up and I'm going to create it. And not from a place of, oh, this is going to be great to monetize, but from a place of authenticity of, if this is how I can help you, then this is how I'm going to help you. And so I've really dabbled in so many topics, but I learned very quickly that my relationship content was the one that people were coming back to again and again and again and again. It's funny because I never honestly thought that I could be a coach in the relationship space, because I have had very, very difficult experiences in my relationship, like extremely difficult, to the point where I've led myself through them, but it's a journey I've always kept very private and had never really spoken about. But I now realize that my entire career has been built on the idea of turning your pain into power.
So I would love to dive deeper into what you spoke about, the breakthroughs that you've had.
Looking back, it's so interesting because I have spoken about the fact that we broke up. I shared my journey healing from the breakup. I've actually never talked about what happened publicly. Kind of the first time of me actually telling the story publicly of what happened, but it's been about 3 years now, and I feel like I'm in a place where it feels okay to do that. Everything was really beautiful. He was talking about how he wanted to get married and buy a house together and all of these big steps in our relationships. Simultaneously, my career was really starting to take off, and I was getting these huge speaking opportunities, and I was getting flown out to New York City and getting flown out to LA to speak places, and my career was really starting to take off too. And I remember one day he had texted me, and we were both in the middle of our work day, and he goes, oh, I just got off the phone with a realtor. And I was like, oh, okay, about what? And he was like, well, I was thinking about us like buying a condo or buying an apartment soon. And I'm thinking, okay, this is cool. He's taking initiative. He's planning. We love to see that from a man. And I was like, cool, well, I wouldn't want to do that unless we were married. And he goes, oh, no, I'm talking about the next 1 to 2 years when we're married, because I plan on marrying you. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. Okay. Let's talk about that later. We're both at work right now. Then that night, we were supposed to go out with some friends, and he decided last minute he didn't want to go. And I remember getting kind of annoyed with him, because I was like, really, you just want to sit at home by yourself? Like, you don't just want to come out? We've had these plans. And he was like, no, I don't want to go out. And so I ended up going out with the friends anyway. And I remember, and this speaks to the power of a woman's intuition, and to every woman listening to this, do not discredit the little nudges that you have. Do not discredit those little feelings that you have within, where you feel something preemptively and then go, oh, no, it would never be that. Because that is your superpower. That is your magic as a woman. Not to say that men don't have intuition, but I really, truly believe, and I'm sure you agree with this, that ours is so vastly different.
100%.
And I ended up getting home late that night, and then he had to work early the next morning, so he had left to go to work. And he comes home from work, and I could tell something's wrong. And he asks if we can talk. And I think we're just going to talk about the night before. I'm going to apologize for being a little step with him. He's going to apologize for not coming out. It's fine. We're going to move on. It's no big deal. He basically sits me down on the couch, long story short, and starts saying how he can't shake this gut feeling he's felt for the past 6 months that he could do so much better than me.
Oh, no. Okay.
So I'm sitting there going, what? And he looks at me and he goes, come on, Hannah, you didn't actually believe this relationship was going to work out, did you? Like, you weren't dumb enough to think this was actually going to work and we were actually going to get married.
Oh, making you doubt the whole situation and making you feel like the crazy one, which, yeah.
It was basically like everything that I thought I knew came crashing down because it was all a lie. Long story short, I found out that he had been seeing someone who I actually knew from college. It completely rocked my world because everything that I had seen, witnessed, and built for the last 4 years with this person was a lie. And I had no choice but to rely on my intuition in that moment. And I just drove straight into my healing. I was going to the beach every morning, cold plunging in the ocean and just screaming and crying. I was EFT tapping multiple times a day. I was just doing breath work as much as I could because the only thought in my mind was, I have to feel this. I have to feel this and move this through, because if I don't, I am not going to survive this. This is the worst pain I've ever been in, and I don't think I can survive this if I don't feel it. And I ended up getting to a space where I was like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm ready to move on. I feel a lot better because I dove straight into my healing. And I mean, in addition to this, I was in therapy 3 days a week. I was with my coach once a week. Like, there was so much support that I was getting, and I was pulling from every resource in the book. But I remember about 3 months after, I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm good. I don't need anything. Like, I'm still hurting and I'm still healing, but I'm just going to do me. I'm going to focus on me. I don't need another relationship. Like, I'm just going to focus on my career. And I saw very quickly why that relationship needed to end. It didn't mean that it wasn't still painful or that I wasn't still struggling with it. But what it did mean was that I was at peace with it, if that makes sense.
Right.
It was literally 2 weeks. I was on my way to a first date with this man. I'm in the Uber on the way to this date, and my Instagram starts blowing up. And I'm like, what is happening? And I go on to see that my ex and his friends have turned their Instagram accounts into slander cases against me.
Of course.
Followers are dropping. People are in my DMs giving me horrible threats. And I'm like, my career's falling apart. My career is literally falling apart in front of me, and it's not my fault. I got to a place where this man and I started to have a really beautiful connection. And I was happy in a way that I had never felt before. And I was so scared because it felt so soon. And even though my coach and therapist were like, you're ready, you're healthy enough, so terrified. I told nobody what was happening. And here I am in this almost like blissful happiness that felt insane to be experiencing. I slowly started talking less and less about the breakup and the healing. I was realizing that there was so much joy and love to be found again. And that made me not want to talk about heartbreak. The reason I'm so passionate about teaching about relationships now, and why I feel this calling to share that with women, is to really anchor in that, like, it doesn't matter what you've been through or how hard it has been, it always gets better. It always gets better. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. It is never too late to try to love again and to love yourself enough to give yourself the opportunity to be loved again.
People assume that ones who are spiritual, they don't feel pain. They think that, they think that we are always like blissed out and we don't care about what's happening in the world. The difference between a spiritual person and one who's not spiritual is the spiritual person will heal faster and they feel things much more deeper than the others.
Oh my goodness. But it's so true. People think that because we're spiritual and we have all these tools that we are like immune from pain. And my God, I wish that was the case.
No, that's absolutely not the case. You feel, in fact, I think once you become spiritual, you even feel others' pain a lot more. And sometimes it's difficult to understand which is mine and which is theirs. We absorb a lot of their energies as well. And one of the biggest things that I see now is that people get cheated on. Why do you think this is happening?
Okay. Do we want the physical explanation or the spiritual explanation, or both? I want to talk about the neuroscience a little bit of how men and women bond in relationships. Mm-hmm. Men and women bond very, very differently. And this is on a chemical, hormonal, neuroscience level. Women, we bond with our partners or with anyone through oxytocin. So your brain releases oxytocin through a couple different things, through physical intimacy, cuddling, kissing, affection, being close to someone. Your brain also releases oxytocin when you are on your bleed as well, which is why you should be very, very careful about who you spend your time around, and especially if you are intimate with anyone while you're on your bleed, because that is just further linking you both together. That's a little bit of an aside though. But we attach to people through that closeness, right? So it's about spending that time together, doing things together. That's why you'll see women who just love when their man comes with them to the coffee shop and just accompanies them and is with them. Men don't bond through oxytocin. Men bond through a hormone called vasopressin. And vasopressin is released when a man feels like he is at risk of losing something. So when he feels like there is a threat, when he feels like there's a chance that he could lose something, and it goes back to our primitive brains and that primal desire of like needing to hunt and chase things, that's when it kicks in and he pulls it closer. So what happens is a couple different things. First, we bond in different ways. That's one part of it. The second part of it is because we bond in different ways, we see a lot of situations where the woman is maybe a little bit more anxiously attached and she is craving that connection and that intimacy from her partner. The man might be, because this is a dynamic I'm seeing a lot these days and I've experienced in myself too, man might be a little bit more avoidantly attached. And so that connection, that clinginess, because he doesn't bond through oxytocin, feels a little bit smothering. And so when a man cheats on a woman, it's not because the woman he cheats with is better. In fact, and I hate to say this because I don't want to sound like I'm like ranking women, because that's absolutely not my intention here. But you will often see the dynamic, and I know I'm generalizing here, of a man who cheats with a woman who is maybe not as physically beautiful or successful or educated or whatever sort of accolades you want to assign to this woman as the woman he cheated on. And people go, why did he do that? Was he looking for better? Was he looking for something different? He was looking for easier. Because what happens is that woman who is anxious, one, she is needing a lot more validation. She's needing a lot more of that love and intimacy and connection. But at the same time, if we are also talking about a woman who I feel like is the type of woman who's going to be listening to this conversation between us, she's also probably has high standards. She probably has high standards for what she wants, for who she is, for the way that she carries herself. Because if you are a successful, educated, beautiful woman, you don't live without some sort of standards. For a man who is avoidant and is scared of that commitment, that is terrifying. And so he goes and cheats on a woman who's not going to hold him accountable, who's not going to require the same things, who's going to settle for less because she doesn't hold herself to the same standards. And so what's difficult about this is what you see is then a lot of men, they go and they cheat and then they realize, oh, this was not what I actually wanted. And I actually want what I had before. And it's because their brain is releasing that vasopressin that is telling them, hey, now they want to bond. Now they want to be close. And that's where I think the ultimate spiritual test comes, in the sense of, can you rebuild from that? Now, that takes two spiritual people who are really doing the work, both on themselves and in their relationship, to be able to build through that. If you can recover from that, and like I said, it takes a lot of discernment and boundaries and like spiritual awareness from both people, you will have the best relationship, because now you're both in a place where you're neurochemically in a position to bond in a way that you couldn't before. That being said, what has to happen and the work that has to happen for people to get to that place of recovery and rebuilding a relationship is a lot of work. For the woman or the more anxious person in the situation, it's about not abandoning yourself and rejecting yourself for the sake of your relationship. Because what happens is we become like a dog doing tricks for treats, where if we perform a certain way, if we show up a certain way, then we're going to get that love. We're going to get that affection. Oh, if I am the perfect wife and I'm cooking him meals and I am always pretty and I've got a full face of makeup on and I'm making money and I'm nice and I'm polite and I don't argue and I support him in his dreams, then he's going to love me. That's not true. That is not true. He will love those things about you, but it's not going to make him necessarily want to be the man that you want him to be. When he's going to become the man that you want him to be is when you stop rejecting yourself and you start choosing yourself. And if he wants you to do something you don't want to do, you say no. If you feel a certain way in the relationship and something doesn't make you happy, you speak up about it. That's supposed to try to get his affection, because love is not something that needs to be earned. The second a woman realizes that, you see, a woman wants nothing more, I think, on a biological level, to be chosen. I think we're lying to ourselves if we say that we don't want to be chosen and we don't want to be claimed by a partner or whoever it is. Honestly, I think there's a deep primal desire for that as a woman. But the magic for a woman and where she stops getting rejected is when she learns how to choose herself. When she learns to claim herself, which means claiming her emotions, claiming her needs, claiming what she really wants, standing up for that and communicating that and not wavering on her boundaries because she thinks it'll make it easier for her to be loved. She might get that love that she's wanting, but it's not going to feel the way that she wants it to feel. It's the same way that a man can cheat, and it's not going to give him the feeling that he's looking for because he's chasing something else deeper. Why he runs and really finding safety within himself to know that when he is with a woman who he can build with, a woman who supports his dreams, a woman who would do anything for him, right? He will actually get so much further in life and will actually get so much more successful in whatever realm he wants to be in than by pouring his energy and scattering it into all of these other women too. I always say, when you shift and change, he or your partner or whoever it is will shift and change too. And as women, because we're so intuitive, we actually hold the power. And we hold the power in the sense of we can manifest anything we want, which means that we can manifest and create the relationship dynamic that we want, even with someone that we've broken up with, even with someone that we've had a difficult relationship with. If you've experienced things like infidelity, if you've experienced things like any sort of rejection, or you've experienced your partner just showing up in ways where you're like, I don't like this. I know you can do better. We can create that and we can manifest that. But what it first starts with is looking at all the ways in which we are rejecting ourselves, not fully owning who we are, what we want, our needs, our values, our desires. And we fully claim ourselves. The second we do that is the second that our partner will step up into that version of themselves and claim them. But it has to start with us. It's actually not about them.
So Sahara Rose was talking about princess energy to goddess energy.
Yes, I listened to that podcast too.
Oh my gosh, that was so good, because as a princess energy, you're waiting for the man to pick you. But goddess energy, you pick the man, knowing fully that this person is going to be flawed.
Two things I want to say about that. The first is, if you are showing up as a princess, then you need to expect that you're going to attract a prince.
Yeah.
And a prince is, have you ever heard of people talk about like Peter Pan syndrome, or the man who just won't grow up and won't get it together? That feels like he is entitled, feels like he doesn't need to grow up. He's in that little boy energy. But if you show up as a queen, that's when you attract a king, because the queen is the most powerful player on the chessboard, right? It's not the king. I can't remember who exactly said this. I think it was like a random comment on TikTok, but I saw it the other day and it said, if you treat a man like a bank, don't be surprised when he treats you like a customer. And I was like, ooh, because I think there is such a rhetoric of princess treatment, right? And wanting a man to spoil you and wanting a man to take care of you. And like, there's nothing wrong with wanting that. Like, yes, it's great to have a man who pays on a first date, or who takes you out, or buys you flowers, or spoils you to these things. But at the same time, if you want a partnership, it's going to create an unhealthy dynamic if you are just expecting that man is going to just bankroll your life, because it's a really unequal power dynamic. And I think women sort of get in their heads and they think, well, I want to be in my feminine energy. I want to be with a man who's a provider and all those things. Yes, but providing is not just about money. Like, so many other ways he can show up for you. He can help you. Yeah. Yesterday, I went to the coffee shop with my girlfriend, and then we were going to go see my partner, and I bought him a coffee. And I like to do little things like that. And some women would be like, oh my God, why do you bigger? Because I want to. And it feels empowering to me. And it's okay. Like, I think we've lost the plot a little bit with all this toxic treatment, because it's just creating these it's not like it's unrealistic expectations. I don't want to say that, but it really perpetuates really unhealthy dynamics between men and women that further separate the divide between us.
In the book, it talks about a civilization which went down 30,000 years ago. And the reason why it went down was because of natural disasters and things like that. But it was gradual. It was not like this time when Atlantis sunk and it was this massive destruction and people remember it. No, this was a good time. So in Lemuria, everybody and everything was peaceful. It was beautiful in Lemuria. And you know the shocking part? Lemuria was ruled by women. What makes us so beautiful is our compassion, kindness, the part that we're nurturing, the intuition. This is what feminine energy means. That's what makes us so unique and so beautiful. And it would automatically attract any man towards you.
Oh, yeah. Especially like here in America, especially you'll hear women saying how, oh my God, it's so hard to find a husband. It's so hard to find men who want to marry you. It's so hard to this. I'm like, it's not hard at all. It is not hard at all to find a man who wants to marry you. It's hard to find a man that you want to marry when you have your standards high. But when you are so connected to your intuition, you are so connected to your body and who you are and your truth, and you are leading from a place of kindness and love, it is not hard to find a man who wants to marry you. It does not matter how you look. You can be in sweatpants with no makeup on and greasy hair. And if your energy is speaking volumes, someone is still going to come up and talk to you.
And you said that your understanding of soulmate has changed over the years. Do you believe in soulmate? Can you dive deeper into what that means to you?
Allegedly, I have very controversial views on it. I don't think it's that controversial, but I've been told it is. I think a lot of women, especially here in the States, have that there's plenty of fish in the sea. You can date many people. You can love many people. To an extent, I think that's true. I think that you can have great relationships with many people. I think you can even love many people. That being said, in terms of soulmates in a romantic sense, because I think we also have many soulmates. I think we have soulmates that are friends. I think our pets can be soulmates. I think our children can be soulmates. We can have family members that are soulmates. There's lots of different levels to soulmates, because the soulmate is essentially someone that you made a soul contract with before you came into this lifetime and said, we are going to come here and we are going to be in connection and do this together. When it comes to romantic sense, I fully believe now that while there are many people you can love, there are many people you can have great relationships with, there is always going to be that one person. And there's going to be that one person that you come back to time and time again, and that you love unlike anyone or anything else. The challenge here is that it is not the easiest relationship, because our partners are here to test us and they're here to help us grow and heal, which means that they are always going to mirror us. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. When you shift and change, they will too. So because our partners are here to mirror us, that person, our person, is going to be the biggest challenge to all of our fears, all of our subconscious blocks. They are probably going to hurt us, honestly. And I don't mean that in like an abuse way. Obviously, please use your discernment when listening to this. If I am not making an excuse for that at all, but I mean, they might betray you. They might hurt you. They might do things that upset you. The challenge is that can you look at that as an invitation to heal and grow within you? Can you do that work within you? Because you may choose not to be with that person. You guys may end up marrying someone else and having happy lives with someone else. That's fine. But they will always be there, and it will always be them, and you will always go back to them. And I think until you experience that, you just don't, it's hard to conceive. I think that's why so many people don't understand, and why this belief is so controversial, is because not everyone has experienced it yet or will experience it in that depth. Maybe they've walked away from that person. Maybe they've chosen, they want nothing to do with that person. That's okay. You have free will to make that decision. You know, there's no one holding a gun to your head saying you have to be with this person. That's not it. But I think until you've experienced it, it's a really hard thing to rather than understand. And once you experience it, you realize, oh, yeah, everyone talking about the one or how there's that one person or your soulmate, like they're actually correct because it's different. It's different on every level.
I think there will always be lessons that you have to learn. And if it's not with this one person, even in the next relationship, you'll have to deal with the lessons anyway.
Mm-hmm. It's why I work with so many women who come to me and they're like, I have attracted the same man 5 times. What is the problem? And it's like, because you haven't integrated the lesson, right? You can leave that person, that's fine, but it's going to show up again and again and again and again in every partner until you heal it. It's just the same person in different costumes because the universe is going, are you going to get the lesson now?
And you've built a career out of this spirituality and you've blended it so beautifully. How did this happen?
This was not intentional from day one, but I see it now, the blend of the aesthetics and the fashion and everything. It is a very strategic move because as much as like I 100% do this work to show up and serve and help others, that is the first and foremost, the most important thing. I am also building a business. I am also building a legacy for myself. And I'm also but I'm also building something and wanting to stand out in an industry that is, there's a lot of voices in this industry too. So I think it's natural that when we have these gifts and we want to give them to as many people as possible, we also need to be a little bit strategic in our approach in that. And so I say that because I think when we think of the woman who is spiritual or a spiritual teacher, or we think of someone who is the coach, the mentor, the helping people, we have a very strong image for the most part of what comes to mind. We think of a woman who is older, who maybe, doesn't care about beauty and fashion and doesn't care about how things look. And we think about the Instagram feed that's full of pictures of trees with motivational quotes on top of them and galaxies with like astrological planets. That's fine. I am not knocking that at all. But who that's going to speak to is someone who is already seeking out spiritual content, someone who is already on this wavelength, seeking out from, an evolved teacher who is actively looking for this. That's great. There is nothing wrong with that. Like, I really want people to hear me say, like, I am not casting a judgment. There is nothing wrong with that. But what I also understand is there are so many people who need this work who don't know that they need it. And when I think about the woman who is about 18 to 35, what is she interested in? She is not seeking out, these deep spiritual gurus. She's maybe heard some names like Joe Dispenza, Deepak Chopra. She's heard those names. She is not seeking out their content necessarily, especially if she's not already on this spiritual journey. But you know who she is willing to listen to? Someone who can talk to her on her same level. So someone who can talk to her about the best place to buy her clothes or her favorite picks from the Sephora sale, or someone who can go out for a round of espresso martinis with her and like go out on a night out and talk to her about the relationship struggles and talk to her about the dating apps and talk to her about all of these things that she and her girlfriends would already talk about. So all of these things, like in addition to being the spiritual teacher, but I'm also a 27-year-old girl and I like to do all those things, right? I love to go shopping for clothes. I love to go do my makeup. I love to go out with my girlfriends, going out with them tonight. Like, I love all of those things. And so what I really recognize is like, instead of trying to get people to come to me, I'm going to go to them. So I'm going to give them this content in a way that they are actually going to understand it. So if it means that I'm going to sit there and do my makeup and they're going to ask me in the comments about like 10 of the products that I'm using, but they're going to listen to a nugget of what I said and then go, wait a second, now I'm thinking about this thing, that's worth it. If they need to know like what my Sephora sale picks are in order for them to understand my takes on relationships, that's it. And so it's one of those things where I understand how that woman thinks because I am that woman too. I understand that she wants something that is aesthetic driven. She wants something that's pretty to look at. She wants something that she can not necessarily like resonate with, but also that she can see herself in too. And if I can do that and then bring her what she doesn't know that she needs, it's the same way as like Imagine that you're going to one of your favorite restaurants and you already know you love that restaurant. You already know it's amazing, but then they have a new dish on the menu. And you're like, well, I really love this restaurant and I really love everything else that they serve. So, okay, I'm going to try this new dish that I would never try before. And then you taste it and you realize you love it. It's amazing. And it's like your new favorite food. You would have never tried it if it was a restaurant solely dedicated to that thing. The reason you tried it was because you already know you love the restaurant. You can already, enjoy the other dishes. So you might as well try this too. That's very much my approach is you come to me because you're more likely to listen to one of your girlfriends than you are to listen to a woman who is maybe more along your mom's age, who has all of this wisdom and knowledge. You might not listen to her unless you know that you're looking for that sort of wisdom and you're at that level.
I love that because when you were saying that, what it reminded me of? I read somewhere, I think probably in the course, and probably not in Course in Miracles, somewhere I read that when Jesus incarnated, he had also made up his mind that the way he's going to serve these very complicated, esoteric principles in the way the people of that time would understand, which is why he used parables. He spoke about the birds and the seeds and about sowing seeds. Some will grow, some will not grow. So it's like he did the same thing that we are doing, right? Where we are also trying to speak in the language that they understand.
Mm-hmm.
I also see now a lot of the girls who are going through their spiritual awakenings, and then they realize that they want to serve the community. How feasible do you think this is, and what would be some of the steps that they could take to make this as their career?
It's feasible when you're in integrity with the work that you're teaching. And this is probably not the answer that people want to hear, but I think a lot of people want to become a coach or mentor / content creator because they see the benefits of this lifestyle. They see that we're getting flown out to places to speak on stages. They see the number underneath our name. They see the money that we can be making. And they think, I want to do that too. There's nothing wrong with that, but are you actually in integrity with what you're teaching? Because I see a lot of people who get into it and they want to say teach business and they've never built a business in their life. They have no idea what it's like. Or they want to teach on relationships and they married their high school sweetheart, never been heartbroken a day in their life. There's nothing wrong with those experiences, but you're out of integrity with what you're teaching because the best teachers are the ones who've walked through the fire and have really said, hey, I have come out burned, I've come out scarred, but I also know how good it can get after that, and I'm here to teach you. So really come back to looking at what is the most painful experience that you've been through in your life? What is the thing you've constantly had to overcome? What is the thing you've constantly had to struggle through? How have you worked through that? Reverse engineer that process. And that is the medicine that you have to give to others. The problem with that is a lot of people don't want to look at that trauma and that pain enough in order to transmute it and do the work that's going to require. Because I will say this too. It's triggering working with people. Especially when you have been through your own painful experiences, it can be really triggering. My clients will come to me with problems and I'm like, oh my God, I got to take a breath because I have gone through the same thing and now it's bringing up emotions within me. And sometimes after those calls, I have to take a step back and be like, okay, we need a journal. We need to tend to ourselves a little bit because that was really intense and triggering. It's not easy in that sense. So I would say if you're wanting to get into this work and help people, first and foremost, understand your why. Because if you don't have a very clear why that is not associated with money, you are going to burn out very quickly. Understand your why and understand, have you lived the process that you are trying to teach in some regard? It doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. By no means am I saying that. But can you speak from integrity and authenticity from whatever it is that you want to teach? If you can do those things and continue to do your own work on yourself too, then I think you can absolutely help people. And the first step with that is to share what you're learning and put it in context of if you were in the midst of that situation that you were going through. So let's say, for example, you want to be a relationship coach and you've gone through some crazy breakups, right? What did that version of you who was in the breakup needed to hear? that is the content you need to be making. That is how you need to be helping people. Because if you would have needed it at that time, someone else who is your target audience needs it too. And so it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about understanding that the person that you're serving is just a mirror of a past version of you. And if you can just give them everything that you wished you had when you were going through that experience, that is when people will want to work with you. That's when people will flock to you. That is when your business will grow and sustain on its own. But it has to come from that place of authenticity and integrity, because if you haven't really lived the experiences that you want to teach on and you haven't really done that work, well, then how are you going to know how to show up and serve those people? You don't know what they need.
I love that, Hannah. You are such an incredible speaker, and it makes sense to fly you out and listen to you speak. And I'm so glad you came on the podcast to speak to us. Do you have any final message for the women who would be listening to this episode?
First and foremost, I just want to say thank you. This has been such an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you. And I'm always so immensely grateful anytime someone wants to talk to me about these things. So I just want to first and foremost, thank you so dearly. The second thing I want to say, never forget just how powerful you are, because in any moment, anything can change. And that doesn't have to be bad. That means for the better. It doesn't matter what your circumstances are right now. It doesn't matter how hopeless things seem. It always can change, because when you change, everything else changes too. When you shift and change, that person, that situation, that circumstance, whatever it is you're going through will shift and change too. It's all about coming back to your power and remembering that it all starts with you. You are not at the mercy of another person. You are only at the mercy of how deep you allow yourself to go in your own emotional journey with yourself. So take back your power and remember, you do not have to be a victim to your circumstances. You don't have to stay here. If you don't like where you are, you can change that. And it can happen very, very quickly. So my hope is that any woman listening to this, or any person, man, woman, otherwise, understands that the power has always been within them. It's not about seeking anything outside of you. It's just about reconnecting to the magic that's always been within you.
Can you tell us, Hannah, where we can find you and the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me everywhere, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at The Roadtohannah. Hannah is spelled like Hannah, Hannah. It's a long story. My website is theroadtohannah.com. You can find more info about one-to-one coaching with me, courses, classes there. I do have a membership community called The Truth, where I drop little 20 to 30-minute audios almost every single day to a group of women from all around the world who are ambitious doing this work. They have become friends with each other. It's really beautiful. You can find more info for that on my Instagram too. But yeah, I just want to say thank you again so much. It has been such a pleasure to be in conversation with you today.
Thank you so much, Hannah.